And we'll start out with the first thing is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pella, would you like to do that for us? Lead us?
I shall.
Okay, thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
of the
States of
United States
America
of America, and
to the
we can all
republic
do it.
For
For which is
I was
stands
one nation
nation
under God,
under God,
with liberty,
indivisible,
indivisible,
oh,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody.
Did I butcher it?
You did just fine. Okay, and the next item is roll call. Fifi, could you take roll, please?
Sorry, Madam Chair. Do we need to do the COVID thing?
Peter?
that COVID will be right after this one, Peter.
Okay.
So when I call your name, please state either here or raise your hand. If you're calling in by phone, I'll give you a few minutes to respond. Chair Abelson?
Here.
Vice Chair Smith? Committee Member Anderson? Committee Member Bruns?
Here.
Committee Member Clark? Jean Clark? I see you.
Sorry,
There you
here.
go.
I couldn't unmute. Sorry. Here.
No worries. Committee Member Cooney? Committee Member Dowjelly? No. Committee Member Hammond?
Here.
Committee Member Ibarra?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Committee Member Kamara?
Here.
Committee Member Ridgway?
Here.
Thank you. Committee Member Perry?
Here.
Thank you. Committee Member Reese Brown? Committee Member Timothy? Okay. Is there anyone whose name I did not call?
Did you call me?
I did. I got you, Chair, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Chair Abelson, please note that Committee Member Anderson, Cooney, Dowjelly, Reese Brown, and Timothy are all absent. Nope, I see Committee Member Cooney popping in right now.
Okay. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to item number 3, public comment. And this is, I believe, where you're going to discuss the COVID notice. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Let's see.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live-streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should remute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning will be provided. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the COVID-19 Special Notice for Public Comment Guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Okay, so now we're ready for public comment. Item number 3, public comment. Is there a member of the public who would like to speak? If you could raise your hand.
I see Committee Member Bruns raising her hand.
Okay,
I just wanted to introduce Lorna Van Akron, who is attending the meeting and will become the primary person from the Advisory Council on Aging, representing SMAC, Senior Mobility Action Council, and I will move to the alternate place. Yes, thank you.
does that happen via some action that we do, or is that an action of that agency?
It will be from that agency and we'll handle the
Okay.
administrative side.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything except say welcome, I think.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Or... Okay, I can't, as far as I can tell, there aren't any. Are there any communications from the public in written form?
We did not receive any, Sherry Appleson.
Okay, so I think we're ready to move on then. And the next item is the approval of the summary of actions, and that is from the meeting of November 16th, 2020. So if everyone could look at those minutes, and if they have a question or if they want to make a motion, that would be great.
Madam Chair, this is Kim Ridgway. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Kim. Is there a second?
This is Jean Clark. I will second that.
Thank you, Jean. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Chair Abelson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. Committee Member Bruns?
Aye.
Committee Member Clark?
Aye.
Committee Member Cooney?
Aye.
Committee Member Hammond?
Yes.
Committee Member Ibarra?
I'll need to abstain.
Is that
Committee
it?
Member Kamara?
Aye.
Committee Member Nestor Brush? I'm sorry, Committee Member Ridgway.
Aye.
Like, why is she not answering? Committee Member Perry.
Aye.
Committee, okay, motion passes unanimously by a majority present with Committee Member Ibarra abstaining.
Okay, thank you. With that, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar, which consists of item A, which is the PCC membership roster, and B, which is a list of the upcoming authority meetings. Let's see here. I think I just. So I believe, do we need to, we don't need to do any action here, right? Or do we?
No, this is just informational.
Okay, this is just informational. Okay, are there any questions or anything from anyone, including the public? Doesn't seem like there are any questions, so we'll accept that as given to us and move on to the next item, which is item number 6. And there's a regular item there, which is introduction to the Executive Director, Timothy Hale. And on here it says that he will introduce himself. Tim, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tim Hale. I'm the new Executive Director for Contra Costa Transportation Authority. I really wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself to all of you, and been doing that with all of our committees, and wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of the goals that I have for the agency, as well as some of the other things that we're kind of working on and focusing on in the agency. So maybe to start a little bit about myself.
Before you go any further, we're not seeing your face.
Oh no, really?
Uh-huh. Your video might not be on.
I see it.
You can see
I
it?
see it, yeah.
Yeah, I see it.
There, now I can.
Okay.
Okay. There. Perfect.
Everyone can see me? Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just a little bit about myself. So I've actually been working for, if you haven't heard of me or seen me, I've been working for the authority for the last 3.5 years now. I was the Deputy Executive Director for Projects, and I was hired by Randy Iwasaki back in May of 2017 to fill that role when Ross Chittenden retired from the authority. And I actually came from Southern California. So I'm a transplant from Southern California, and now live in the Bay Area with all of you. And one of the things that I worked on as the Deputy Executive of Projects was the Measure J that we tried to pass back last year, and worked on the Transportation Expenditure Plan. And I know I worked with a number of you and a number of your agencies to put that together and pull that together into what we want to develop as the future of our transportation: a seamless, integrated, accessible, sustainable transportation system. And so as I was going through the interview process with our authority board, I was focusing on primarily 4 goals. And as you all know, CCTA has got a culture of innovation and sustainability, and really making sure that we're delivering and bringing to the communities a sustainable transportation system, an equitable transportation system as well. And so those 4 goals really around foster our culture, which is more continuing the legacy of the authority of being an employer in choice, being an owner of choice. As you all know, we actually build and construct all of our projects. We actually consult out about 90 to 95% of all of our work. And so they are an extension to our staff, extension of our family here at CCTA, to help us really deliver our Measure J Transportation Expenditure Plan, as well as all the programs that you are all working on. The other goal is leverage innovation. So as you know, we manage the 5,000 acre secure autonomous vehicle test bed at the former Concord Naval Weapons Station, as well as a lot of other innovative things that we're doing in terms of, piloting the very first shared autonomous vehicle in California and testing that on public roads, all the way to developing the infrastructure required to really enable a lot of this connected and autonomous vehicle environment to happen along our local roads and streets and freeways. And that's a real focus on safety. So one of the things we do is we tend to focus on proactive safety measures. We try to look at how can we collect better data, better information by leveraging technology to really get people to where they're going more efficiently, safely, effectively. And one of the things that I learned in developing the Transportation Expenditure Plan is how really disconnected our paratransit services are in the county. And I know that Peter is going to be giving you an update today about the Accessible Transportation Plan. And that's really exciting, and really exciting for you, and really excited for me, because it really meets one of our goals for the authority to really provide a more seamless, integrated transportation system and a more accessible and equitable transportation system in Contra Costa County. And as we continue to leverage that innovation, we do that in everything that we do in terms of, trying to make ourselves more efficient, in terms of implementing our Progress on Paperless program, from all the way to innovating into our construction program, in planning, in projects. And so we use innovation in everything that we possibly can to really help deliver projects and programs to all of you in our communities. The other goal is drive our future. So that's really looking at ways to really make the organization more resilient, advancing the organization to really prepare prepare the organization for the future of transportation in Contra Costa County. As you all know, transportation is becoming, more and more and more about personalized mobility. So how does CCTA in the future provide more personalized mobility options? And so we're doing that through a number of grants, a number of studies. Back in 2018, we were awarded a Mobility on Demand grant by the US DOT. And that's really looking at how to develop a mobility application to be able to plan, schedule, and pay for your trip, and really connect people to transportation in a more personalized way, providing them personalized mobility options. So that might be, car share, it might be shuttle services, might be paratransit services, anything that you need to get around in Contra Costa County, bringing that into one integrated, seamless platform. And so that's really looking at how does the authority need to really advance itself to implement programs like that as we're looking towards the future of transportation. The other thing in terms of driving our future is one of my priorities is to look for opportunities to develop another transportation expenditure plan in the future and start preparing for that. And we're really going to be focused on the development of our countywide transportation plan. So if you haven't seen it, right now we work or operate under the 2017 countywide transportation plan. And that was really a lot of the foundation of that we built a lot of our projects and programs, also set the foundation for the transportation expenditure plan that we developed last year for the new measure. So we're going to be looking at, how to improve on that and really bring so the countywide transportation plan is really, I'll say, our strategic plan. It's our long range vision of what transportation is going to look like in the county in the next 30 to 40 years. And the important thing there is really making sure that we're maintaining quality of life as we continue to have, a growing aging population in Contra Costa County. We want to make sure we provide an accessible, safe transportation system for our seniors, for veterans, for people with disabilities, and really improve transportation in all of our communities. And so by doing that, take a lot of what we're working on, the MOD grant, the accessible transportation plan, as well as other studies, and really work closer with the community. And so that's really my fourth goal. My fourth goal is really enhance collaboration and really look for opportunities to really engage with you, engage with our community, to really bring that back and help craft a lot of what we're doing in this next version of the countywide transportation plan. We did a tremendous amount of that when we developed the new measure last year. And we plan on reaching out to our stakeholders again, reaching out more to the community, and really getting more feedback and engaging them in terms of how we see the future of transportation in Contra Costa County. And so that enhanced collaboration is really going to take a lot of outreach from our staff to you and bringing you alongside the development of the CTP as we look towards the future. And so one of the other things I forgot to miss it here. One of the things I want to share with you too is the ADS grant that we're working on. This is an automated driving system grant that we were awarded last year from US DOT, and it's really focused on first and last mile and really looking at how to provide better accessibility to our local Veteran County Hospital using shuttle service, as well as providing shared autonomous vehicles and leveraging that technology for first and last mile within the community of Rossmore, as well as within Bishop Branch. And so we're looking at spreading this automated vehicle technology and not just have it focused in Gomentum Station, but really bring it out to the communities. And we want people in the communities to actually ride in these vehicles, interact with these vehicles, so they can understand and feel what these vehicles will look like and how they can really help improve your quality of life. And through that grant, we're looking at automated type wheelchair constraint type systems for autonomous vehicles. We're also looking at making sure that the locomotor shuttle that we're providing in this grant is ADA compliant, ADA accessible, as well as making sure we have attendants on these vehicles as well. And so that's really looking at, how do we leverage this new technology and use it to support and get people where they need to go to maintain people's quality of life. And so that's in the automated driving system grant. That's a 3-year grant. And so we're really excited about that too. And again, we're taking that information, taking that knowledge and really incorporating it into this countywide transportation plan. And like I said, it's really our outlook, our strategic plan over the next 30 years out to 2050. So I wanted to kind of stop there, open it up for any questions you might have for me, any comments. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity for me to introduce myself and kind of tell you a little about myself and kind of the vision that we have for the authority.
Okay, are there any questions?
I think can
If you
one clarification. This is Peter. Tim, I think
Okay.
maybe I heard you wrong, but I think you said Veterans County Hospital, but it's the Contra Costa County Medical Center,
Oh, yeah,
not the VA facility.
Yeah. You are right. Thank you, Peter.
This is Jean Clark from the city of San Pablo. I just want to say congratulations. Sounds great. Big lofty goals and big lofty plans, but absolutely sounds great. And a lot of it I know aligns with a lot of the things that we've been saying on this Paratransit Coordinating Council. So more power to you and good luck.
Well,
you're welcome.
Well, you'll be, hopefully I want to engage with all of you. So I definitely want to bring you all to the table and be part of the vision, right? So that's kind of the goal. I think Rashida had a question. She had her hand up. Did we lose her?
Rashida?
No, I'm here. I'm being patiently polite. So this is raise hand feature. First of all, congratulations, welcome. The question that I had regarding the Measure J. So I've been on the committee regarding the distribution, and over the last, I wouldn't count the COVID year, but the 2 years before the COVID year, one of the things that we were concerned about was just one, standardized reporting, and making sure that innovations that came up were truly rewarded. Just because it's $100 and everybody gets $20, if there's some kind of true innovation with one, obviously the amount that it's going to take to support that particular innovation, number one, but number two, study that innovation to see how that innovation could potentially be standardized and picked up by the rest of the transit agencies. If there's one thing that COVID has taught us over this year is how fragmented we are, extremely fragmented, which frankly diminishes the quality of service and the integrity of service that we give to our paratransit users. I've been in the paratransit business now for 25 years or so, and that really has been the biggest complaint, standardized complaint across the board, is how fragmented the services are. So when it comes to our Measure J monies and standardizing these innovations, making sure that some of those monies, whether it comes out of the Measure J or any other monies, right now we're working on this huge ATS plan that is probably supposed to take some form of that. But when this ATS plan is identifying some potential existing funds that could help us to standardize information. So instead of splitting the pot, making sure that we can use this type of money in the best interest of the user, because they don't have to shift from service to service, and the service is just completely different, completely foreign to them. So one of the things, I guess I'm throwing my hat in early in this, is it would be nice, as the, just speaking from the Paratransit Council, that some of these things are kind of looked at so that those of us that are on committees, like the distribution committees and so on and so forth, have some kind of guidance. We were kind of cooking it up as we were going along, but having not only the guidance, but the support in order to help the agency standardize things will go a long way, so that not every few years we have to come up with a certain amount of money in order to do a study on it. We've had a lot of opportunities to use existing resources, existing forces, existing talents to make decisions like this to standardize our services without throwing huge amounts of monies down the hole for the study. I'm not saying that the study was not good, but we've just now reached a stage. COVID has taught us that tomorrow is not promised to anybody. We need to make things happen. So I'm just throwing my hat up in the air just so that you kind of keep that in the back of your mind as this council continues to move forward in making sure that we advocate for our users as a whole. That's it.
I couldn't agree with you more,
Mhm.
Rashida. I think that one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that, you know, we have, our system is very fragmented. I absolutely agree, but also just from a whole, it's not a very resilient transportation system. So that's what when I was talking about resiliency, that's kind of what I was referring to is, and what I'm hoping for is that one thing that we've learned from the COVID pandemic is that we've had to learn to be flexible, nimble in the transit world. That's very hard to do historically. And what I'm hoping is that we can really learn from this flexibility and be able to pivot into some actual real innovation into transit. And I agree with you in terms of the standardization. And I think Peter's kind of looking at that in terms of the accessible transportation plan. And I just want you to know that the accessible transportation plan is a priority for our authority board. And I'm sure you'll hear more about today, but there's a recommendation to create some sort of task force to implement the accessible transportation plan. And that's something I think that the authority board is not going to take lightly. And most likely, at least our recommendation as staff, will make sure that that task force gets formed and staffed appropriately. And potentially even be taken on by CCTA, but that's not my decision. That's the decision of our authority board. But definitely something that we're very interested in.
One of the things that I would be really interested in seeing happen is not limiting whatever it is to the county. What I noticed with Kaiser, for example, in the area that I happen to live in, which is West County, is they're combining Kaiser Oakland with Kaiser Richmond, and it sort of now works as a single entity. They have, for example, doctors going back and forth between facilities, and they're doing a number of different things, but they aren't organized along county lines. They're organized along lines of, I think, what I would call an area that makes sense for people to travel in. And you maybe have to travel further if there's something you do that you don't do very often. So I would hope that we wouldn't, leave out people that are on sort of more on the edge, that actually more integrate with what's going on in Alameda County, for example, or over in, it might be different parts. I could see that it could be different. There might be different segments within Alameda County that different segments within Contra Costa County relate to. For example, on the east side and on the west side of Alameda County, that might be a true statement. What I'm mostly interested in is making sure that we're not setting up a system where it works great if you happen to be in a particular part of the county, but it doesn't work at all if you're in a different, another part of the county. That's the kind of thing and also the, sometimes you go, say, from our county to San Francisco. Well, in my area, that's a one-seat ride already. But in other parts of our county, it isn't. So that's kind of a noticeable thing to me. So I just wanted to throw in those comments to make sure that we don't exclude things like that. Are there other folks who want to
Yes.
say something? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to hear from Timothy, and congratulations, by the way, Timothy. I'd like to hear from you personally on how you feel towards paratransit as it relates to the overall transportation system. And in that, and in your assessment, of the transportation system, where do you stand in terms of paratransits being a more equal partner than they are now in the overall transportation system? Because right now, from where I sit, paratransit is a stepchild of CCTA, and we need to have more direction from the top down. Right now, it's more like middle downward driven rather than having inspiration from the top coming down and exerting its influence and its power to allocate people, time, resources to paratransit.
So excellent question. So like I mentioned in my opening remarks, I learned a lot about paratransit services in Contra Costa County last year when we were developing the expenditure plan, and I was shocked and surprised that, you know, in order to get from let's say the central part of our county to the eastern, you know, or western part of our county, as Janet was mentioning, it's really broken down by between private and public and service areas. And so, you know, the fact that someone had to do, you know, 2 or 3 different transfers to get to a particular destination across our county just was really shocking to me. I was just like, wow. I mean, so a trip that would normally take someone to drive in their personal vehicle, you know, 45 minutes would take someone anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 hours, you know, to do using the paratransit service network. And so it was really, you know, just a call to action for myself, you know, that, hey, we really need to focus on how to make this service a lot better. And I think that, I mean, that's one of the reasons, you know, that we are in the mix of developing this accessible transportation plan, you know, and I can assure you that that accessibility is a priority for us in Contra Costa County. And as I was mentioning earlier, you know, I think this accessible transportation plan is really going to kind of set a brand new direction. I don't think it's going to be one of those plans where we just do to check the box and we just set it off to the side. Like, this is going to be a plan that we prepare, and we're going to take a lot of interest in making sure that it gets implemented through this task force, and ultimately either through CCTA or some other agency as we're kind of moving through this. And so I think it's really important. And you know, and like I said, the accessible transportation plan is also, you know, a priority of our authority board chair as well as the authority board. So it's coming top down, even above me, that this is a priority for CCTA.
Are there other comments or questions?
We have a hand from Committee Member Kamara.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm definitely glad to hear that because as Committee Member Smith mentioned, we're kind of like the individual advocates doing this. Regarding that ATS plan before it was put on, the agencies, a number of agencies have been trying to partner for at least 2 years regarding the very subject that you mentioned, which is the 4 or 5 hour transfer trip, depending on how far you're going across service areas. So I'm not sure whether you're aware of this or not, but there's a 1-seat regional pilot program that's going on right now. That's very expensive. It took 2 years to get off the ground. And frankly, it got off the ground just because we're in the middle of COVID and there was a contact tracing potential nightmare that could happen, where everybody was just said, you know, forget it. We don't care what it costs right now. Just make it happen. So they said it's the right thing to do. This may just be the perfect opportunity for us to, you know, we never know what we're going to know. We're never going to know whether it's going to cost more. We don't know if it's going to cost less. We don't know whether it's going to be savings, but it doesn't matter. What we do know for a fact is that it's going to give the user what they're supposed to have, a seamless, effortless, 1-seat ride. It's going to make the operators' lives just a lot easier but the obligation to make this happen really is from the top. How do we make sure that the transit agencies can pay their drivers, can remain sustainable and relevant as they're providing this service? Because, you know, as transit agencies, it's not as if we don't want to provide those services, but now we kind of have to spread the peanut butter really thin. It's not even crunchy peanut butter. This is creamy peanut butter, and we got to spread it. It's diet peanut butter. We got to spread it really thin across the board, and that's what's happening with transit. So the low-hanging fruit pieces of the ATS, some of them are happening. The conversations are happening, but whether the report goes through or not, and it certainly looks very positive that it's going through, but we have to be able to make these happen, and we can't tie the hands of the transit agencies when it comes to, nobody wants to look like the bad guy. We don't want to tie the transit agencies when it comes to costs and how are they going to make this happen, only to tell a rider, like I had to tell a rider today because of the limited participation, that, you know, give me a minute and really, you know, curb my words on how I'm going to make this happen for somebody who has chemotherapy treatment. I mean, I could barely get the email together this morning at 5 o'clock a.m. So there's a lot of, we have sleepless nights over this. We're not just collecting a paycheck. We're on this board. We're doing what we're doing because we have sleepless nights over this. And I'll let that rest.
No, thank you for those comments, Rashida.
Michael Dowjelly would like to speak.
Go ahead, Michael.
I've had some experience with the so-called one-seat ride, living way out in Antioch, where I do not experience with using it, but I have contacted them because I was trying to set up a trip from where I live in Antioch to a doctor's office in Danville. And it sounded to me like they really had their act together in terms of how it worked. But I do agree with the previous speaker regarding the expense. I was actually pretty shocked. But for people that have no means, I'm very fortunate. I mean, I have a pension and I could get the money together, I would think. But, you know, as you say, that is something that we need to work on. We need to get it started. And I do appreciate at least what it sounded like, that you just simply, they'd call them up and they would come out the next day, and or whenever you had arranged it, come right directly to your house. And then, you know, they would take me to that doctor's office in Danville. Then I would have arranged, you know, how long I thought I was going to be there for the return ride. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I do not see any other hands, Chair Abelson.
Okay. Well, I think then that may be the end of the item. Unless, Tim, you want to add anything else. I think the one thing remaining is to thank you for coming to this meeting and congratulate you for your new position. And I think we're all looking forward to working with you. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before you finish?
No, just a thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Excited for the new role, excited to work with all of you. I know this is a really important topic and issue for you and for a lot of us at the authority, and really looking forward to that accessible transportation plan and really working with you to implement it. Okay,
great. Well, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, let's see if I can get my schedule back here. So the next item on the agenda is I think this is a different item. It's an update on the accessible transportation strategic plan status.
Yeah, it's a different item, Chair Abelson, and I'll take that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Oh, yikes. My picture just blew up here really big. I don't like that. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, so appreciate Tim's comments. And I'll have to tell you, I've been working in the county for 16 years now, working on trying to get accessible transportation to be a priority. And it's been very difficult, and everything seems to be falling into place finally. which is very exciting for me. I think one thing that the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan has done that previous studies have not done is it's helped build a little bit of a coalition through the advisory committees that have been in place. And the fact that we went through this study during COVID kind of pulled us all even a little bit closer together, I think, and gave us some really good lessons learned as we were going through the study process. And I think one of the biggest recommendations that Tim had mentioned that's going to be coming out of the study and is really going to be the key in giving accessible transportation the support and the political support and the future funding that it needs is the development of this task force and eventually a coordinating entity, which is another agency. Tim had mentioned it might be CCTA, it might be a nonprofit. It's basically up to the task force to look into the different options for what that coordinating entity might be. And the purpose of the coordinating entity will be to carry on the kind of the torch, both from a funding perspective, looking for funding, as well as policy-wise, as well as programs and coordinating those programs. And the reason of the middle step of the task force is there's so many potential options with different access to different funding sources and political structures that it really needs to be studied a little bit. We don't want to just put it into the hands of an agency without doing some vetting of who that agency is or what they are. So in order to keep the momentum going, and I feel like we have momentum now, is this interim task force that will take on three basic things. The first thing is to implement kind of the low-hanging fruit of the strategies, the ones that can be done immediately, like Rashida talked about. And the one-seat ride is right up there at the top. Same-day service is something to consider. A one-stop, one-click, or one-call, one-click service. Now, that's probably something that would be better handled by a permanent coordinating entity. But potentially a single sign-in or a single eligibility sign-up, rather than the 4 separate ones by the 4 separate operators. There would be and this is all under the concept of giving somebody a single point of entry into the system to help make it easier for them. So I think that's going to be the key, is that task force, the ongoing task force, which keeps this in the forefront. And like Tim said, our current board seems to be very excited about this and very supportive of keeping accessible transportation in the forefront now that we've got this momentum. We our study partner, our consultant Nelson Nygaard, and I gave a presentation to WCTAC at its meeting last week, kind of an update on where we are with the plan. And their board was very supportive. Both the mayor of Richmond, Tom Butt, who's also on our board, and the director from BART, Deborah Allen, and director from AC Transit all spoke very well of how the study looked at this point and what we found out and the direction that we want to go. And of course, it's important to all of them that we keep the momentum and a good vision for accessible transportation. So a little bit more on the current study. We're coming near the end of that study. We have a draft plan that was that's available now on the website. On our website, if you go to the Accessible Transportation Study Policy Advisory Committee meeting we're having on Thursday, the study is available there in its draft form. We have a grant that's paying for this study from Caltrans. That grant has a deadline of the end of February. So that is the timing on our completion of the study. So we are under a deadline for that. And another reason for the task force is we know that once that deadline takes place and the study is done, we don't want it to sit on the shelf. So the task force will be there to keep it alive and keep it moving forward after the study is complete. So I think based on that and based on what was discussed earlier with your questions to Tim, I will leave it at that and take any questions. And by the way, we're very happy to have Tim in the executive director position now. Tim's been great to work with at the authority over the last several years, and he's a sponge of information. Probably didn't know the first thing about paratransit 3 years ago when he came in to build new lanes and manage the lanes, but he's learning fast, so he's going to be great for us.
That's a true story.
We have a hand from committee member Hammond.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Peter, so I wanted to ask a little bit more about the coordinating agency. I don't know, maybe I missed a meeting or something when this was discussed, but is this something that the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Policy Committee, they're going to designate the members of the task force, and then the task force will be charged with figuring out who this coordinating agency is? Or can you talk a little bit more about how that's going to work?
Yeah, so the task force will be appointed by CCTA. The Policy Advisory Committee is just a committee to help with the development of the study, but the recommendations will go to CCTA, or the study itself for approval will go to CCTA and the Board of Supervisors, and CCTA will be the agency that appoints the task force. There is a recommendation that the task force have a similar makeup as the current PAC, so that it would be well represented by social service agencies and transportation providers, so that those silos are still all in the same room and working together to move this thing forward. Part of the history and problems we've had in the county is the silos and not being able to break those down. And I think the study has helped at least grind those down. We've found we found areas. I'm learning to do construction analogies with the work I do with Tim and the project team, and it's kind of like a construction site. Until you get in there and start digging, you don't know really what you're going to find. And I think we found some of those silos had a little bit thicker walls than we originally thought. So it's going to continue to take the task force and staff who's committed to this to to continue to work on that. But we do, like Tim said, it really appears we have elected support. We have elected members on the Policy Advisory Committee that both represent CCTA as well as transit operators, as well as the county and county departments. So everybody is working really hard together on this.
Is there anyone else?
I hope that answers your question, Lisa.
Actually, yes, Rashida, just a little bit of clarification. So, unless I missed it. So technically the task force is the one that's going to recommend the coordinating committee or the oversight committee. Once it's determined, is the task force going to say, oh, this whole thing should be ran by a CTSA, and the CTSA should emanate out of to CTA, or it should be another entity that we should build from the ground up, including whoever? The task force is the one that's going to recommend that, or is
Yes, the task force will do all that analysis and studying those different things.
Okay.
So are they looking at what the role of the PCC would be in that new world?
Yes.
Okay. Are they involving the PCC in that discussion?
That'll all be brought up with the board, and so the board will make the decision as to who sits on the task force and how that task force will function. But we will certainly talk about the PCC's role in doing that, since you guys are all kind of here and having meetings. May even have to bump your meetings up to monthly.
I think we can handle that. Anybody else? I'm not seeing any. Uh-oh, what happened there?
Mike?
I don't see any other hands, Chair Abelson.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peter, for an update on that study. It sounds really exciting. With that, we will move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is the Measure J revenue update.
Yeah, so I'll provide that as well. This is a real
Okay,
simple,
thank you.
and it's good news. I know my face keeps
Fantastic.
so big. So as the operators know, when we first started budgeting for fiscal year 2021 in the midst of the very beginnings of COVID and shelter in place, there was an anticipation of economic downturn and Measure J funding that helps all of the agencies that are on this call receive Measure J funding. And so we actually did a fund estimate for the year of about $77 million. That's for the entire Measure J program. That's not obviously just the paratransit side of it. But just to use this number to give you perspective, now after six, so we did a 6-month allocation based on that amount. Now we are seeing that that's closer to no revenue losses over the last year. So we're seeing closer to 94 million. So because of that increase, it has increased over what we put into our budget that we adopted. We can't allocate money that's not in our budget. So we are taking a mid-year budget revision to our board in March, and that will increase the revenue projection up to the roughly 94 million. I think it's 93 something. And then I will be able to allocate out to all the operators right after that. Matter of fact, I'm taking to the same meeting the allocations based on the new figures. So by the end of March, we should be able to get you a significantly higher 6-month revenue for your operations. So that's the good news.
That's very good news. Thank you. Do you have anything else to report?
Well, we're anticipating going forward. Obviously, we don't have numbers yet, but the 21-22 will probably be similar. Now that, we still have to kind of wait and see how the vaccine spreads out and how things change. But we've been very lucky in Contra Costa County regarding sales tax, that the sales tax has stayed high. So lots of people have continued to shop online, which is great. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people went out and bought cars because they didn't want to ride BART or transit anymore. But cars are a high sales tax item, so I guess that's good for us. Lots of home improvement projects. People have been staying home and getting some work done. So we've seen good revenues from the home improvement stores as well.
Right. And are there any questions for Peter before he finishes this item? I think we're just very happy about the news, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will move on to the next item, which is an update on current services provided and vaccine distribution during the COVID crisis.
So this has kind of been an item we've had on the agenda the last few meetings. And you've all been great about sharing innovative approaches you've taken with your services regarding service changes. I know now it seems like, we've kind of just changed our status, changed today back to purple. But we've also had this interesting of the vaccine is now available, and curious to hear how distribution of that is going. Number one, if there's opportunities for getting seniors to vaccination sites or mobile vaccination clinics that are going to folks. And number two, from a driver perspective, or person who's in the public facing role, if there's issues associated with getting vaccination.
I just went to a town hall that John Joya and Buffy Wicks held on getting the vaccine out. And it actually sounded, it did not sound very good, to be quite honest. And there isn't the number one problem from what they were saying and from what I interpreted was that there isn't vaccine. There's a serious lack of vaccine to
Right.
distribute. And so no matter how good we are at getting people, say, to the vaccine site, if there's no vaccine, it doesn't really matter. And I personally found the forum very frustrating because I had been trying to get a vaccine and still haven't been successful in even getting on a list. But it appears that the vaccine problem is the problem, not so much the other problems from what they were saying. But but some of the sites where I've seen seen things on TV and stuff, they have everybody going through the site in a car. So if you don't happen to drive a car, but rather you use paratransit, there's basically no way to get there. Or there's no way to partake of a system like that unless you can find a friend who will spend a day in a line with you. So it's not working very well. I called Kaiser and they had just they had changed it so that I think it's 65 to 75 or 74 could get vaccines, but that day that I called, they had changed it so that you had to be 75. And my husband happens to be on dialysis, and I asked him if, about it, and he didn't know anything about getting vaccines. And yet I saw on some of the reports that was one of the categories that was like maybe the number one grouping. So it's like nothing is working right. It's really not working. But I wouldn't say that currently, from what I know anyway, I would not say that transportation is a major problem. However, if you happen to use paratransit, which is pretty much exclusively what I do now, there's no way to get there because they just, the paratransit, you have to make an appointment for a time, and then you got to know what time you're going to be done, all things like that don't work very well with the vaccine system. So it's what I would say about it is it's a real problem right now. And I have heard our new president say that it's a real major issue for him on his agenda. And so hopefully that it'll get resolved through that, and there can be more vaccine, and there will be more types of vaccine available and all that. But it's pretty dismal, I think. I don't know if I'm sorry to be so depressing, but
Well, yeah.
I've been spending
Janet,
some time on the issue.
Rashida had her hand
You want
up.
to add?
I think Rashida had her hand up.
Oh, okay. I can't tell who's got their hand up.
We have committee member Kamara with her hand up, followed by committee member Hammond.
Thank you.
I think it was flipped.
Was it?
Yeah, I think Lisa had hers up first.
Go ahead, Rashida. That's fine.
Okay. So basically, Janet hit the nose on the head. But some of the background information. First of all, we've had a very wonderful relationship with our county. Pretty good. This is the only time, and it's because of what they're going through right now that we are now also struggling. All of the transit agencies, I don't know who is on here to speak for themselves, but just in the conversations that I've been in, right now kind of been left on their own to try to figure out. what we're going to do and how we can put our heads together. John Cunningham has been an advocate in trying to put the transit agencies in, Contra Costa County, right there in the middle of the EOC when it comes to advocating for essential workers to get vaccinated, meaning our drivers. These are public-facing workers with high risk. And in addition to that, the scheduling for a vaccine that Janet alluded to, I just found out this morning that the call center that's associated, or call centers that are associated with the scheduling of the vaccine, may not be, many of them are not in the state of California. So that means that if you pick up the phone and you see a number that's calling you from Tennessee, that's calling you from Florida, you're likely not to pick up. And if you're like me, where it takes you minutes to check your voicemail, that means that you may have missed an opportunity to get a vaccine because you did not realize that that call was coming from out of state. So right now, as a transit agency, not only are we talking to our county, trying to work with them. I know that the county has had the problem of not having enough vaccine. We heard about it last week in fact, I watched it on CNN, where certain agencies were talking about that they told us that there was a backup of vaccines for the second doses, only to find out that there weren't a backup of vaccines for second doses. So they're dealing with trying to get enough vaccines, number one, the scheduling problem, right, number two, and then number three, the different individual entities that are advocating for themselves. Earlier on, we found out that Safeway and Sam's Club, they were getting vaccines, but the question is, what tier did they fall in? How did they get it so fast? We're hearing that inmates are getting vaccines because of being in congregate living. But as a transportation entity, a lot of the agencies here, besides the natural exposure to COVID, some of us have engaged and activated the transportation portion of the EOC for the county and has stepped in to actually do COVID positive transportations. And when we were called upon as our duty as part of the EOC to do something that we've never been done before, we do not have a natural transit safety plan that has to do with COVID at the time that we were called. So we had to build it. We had to build something that was going to work along with the protocols of the CDCs and the county. And there are a lot of agencies, I know that my agency did, we put up hazard pay. Nobody had to tell us to do it. We wanted to be good Samaritans. We not only wanted to play our part as the transportation function of the EOC, but we wanted to do it well. We knew that our civic duty was to serve our community. So to get to this juncture with all of this confusion going on, it's a bit disheartening. If you watch the news, there are other areas that are, theirs has basically reached a crescendo. If you look at VTA and other areas, drivers are threatening not to come back to work. They're threatening to do sick outs as a result of not just where's the vaccine, but can you at least tell me when I can expect to get it? If we can tell them that we're going to start rolling vaccines out in 3 weeks, it might be something different. But when we can't tell them anything because it's so waning, it's very difficult. And as somebody mentioned earlier, if we can't get those drivers vaccinated, we can't do school trippers. Right now, many of the transit agencies are trimming the fat off of their routes. They're conserving their routes to only go on to service essential routes. Make sure that they're passing in front of hospitals. Make sure that they're passing in front of grocery stores. Making sure that those are the routes that they're actually doing so people can get to essential services. So there's a lot of work that's been done on the transit agencies behind the scenes that's kind of made us nervous that once we've got to this point, like, we can't have drivers out, whether they call sick or whether they are sick or exposed because of COVID. We are the we are the arteries that kind of feed the building and keep everything pumping when it comes to our community. and transit, and it's been difficult to try to, it's been difficult to be held relevant, especially when it comes to the vaccines. So there's some frustrated transit agencies, at least I know for myself, regarding where we are in this timeline. And we're hoping that all the individuals that we've been working with our county will, kind of take a look at that. We know everybody's important. We know everybody needs to get it, but it's one of those things that's logistics, right? If these individuals are not vaccinated, then this service can't happen. And if this service can't happen, these individuals can't get to where they need to get
So
to.
have you looked at the issue of people who use paratransit can't get in a line in a car?
Yes, we have looked at that issue, and it's still being looked at.
Have you any solutions yet?
Not yet. Not yet. It's one of those things where we might have to just kind of bite the bullet, but we need enough drivers. So in the month of December, earlier this week, we had 5 passenger exposes. In other words, 5 passengers test positive through the contact tracing. They let us know. Over a period of the time that they were letting us know, there were 18 drivers that we had to take off because of potential isolation, quarantine, go get tested. You can't come back to work until you get, tested type of thing, make sure that you're okay type of thing. That's it. That's crippling.
So we've had, in our city, we've had, I can't talk about the details, but it's very scary, the things we're at times unable to do because people have COVID. Our employees have COVID, is what I mean to say by that.
So how it affects that specific problem, when we say just bite the bullet, you need enough drivers where you're not doing the standard paratransit. You're gonna go sit in a line for Lord knows how long, because the person may not know immediately when they're gonna turn back. And you're practically dedicating a driver to a passenger to go get a test. And it's not where you are able to schedule 2 passengers or 3 passengers going to the exact same location because they don't have the exact same time in order to get their vaccine.
Well,
so
I was going to say, could you talk to, on behalf of the transit side of the house, could you talk to the vaccine givers and explain that the people who are the, once you get beyond the essential workers, they're probably the top people to be eligible for the shots, and they're the top people to die from from not getting it. For lack, if I said that correctly.
Yeah.
To encourage. So I mean the thing I would hope that you could help do as a group would be to encourage the vaccine givers, the county, for example, to set up a system where some of the resources work for people who don't drive a car, and who, I mean, I figure if and when I ever get an appointment and I'm still alive, let's say, then I would just call and beg and hope that somebody would spend a day with me so that I could get a shot. I don't know of any other way that I could even get a shot. And I'm not alone.
Yeah, us trying to work this problem out is as far back as trying to get somebody to testing, right?
It's the same problem.
So it's the exact same problem. So that's how long that we've been trying to resolve this issue. We've been trying to resolve this issue from, look, I have an accessible person. They need to come in there for testing, like a drive-by testing, versus the drop and roll type of situation. So we're hoping that with the vaccine and an actual strong need with, these group of individuals that have been identified, that would work. But if we know that we can get our essential workers, we have a full house of drivers, and we can actually, start sacrificing to start making these types of appointments for individual, because, it's better that the train moves than not move at all. We don't need to be stopped. We need to be moving forward no matter how we're doing it. So that's where we've gotten right now. So just to assure the group, it is one of the things that we're working on, but that's what's going on with us and the concerns that we're dealing with regarding the vaccinations, Peter.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. Is there anyone who wants to add to the conversation?
There is Committee Member Hammond, then we have Committee Member Clark, then Committee Member Perry. I hope I got them.
Okay, Lisa?
So I just wanted to let everyone know that Choice in Aging is working with Contra Costa Health Services to actually do mobile vaccination clinics or take the mobile vaccination to the board and care facilities in Contra Costa County. So those are the smaller, not the assisted living facilities where there are people going there to vaccinate residents, but these are small board and cares that may have, you know, a half a dozen people, residents, or more, or a few less, but who in most cases, as you were saying, Janet, can't get out to go to a vaccination site. So we've already vaccinated over 300 people. And what Choice in Aging is doing is we just took on the role of getting everyone, so all of the board and care residents have to be registered. There's the paperwork that has to be done for every person before the vaccines are given. So we've been doing that. Of course, that'll mean doing the follow-up for the second vaccine. But listening to the prior conversation with Janet and Rashida, I am going to ask Debbie if there's been any discussion so far with Contra Costa Health Services about one, trying to get transit operators vaccinated so that they can then transport, hopefully, people that are dependent on the paratransit system to locations to get vaccines. I'll send her an email today after this meeting to ask if there's been any discussions along those lines yet. So, thank you.
But where is it? I guess the thing I'm wondering about in that example is there's a line and, you know, it's raining. What people, how who aren't, how are people supposed, it doesn't work to have a line of cars in a parking lot for people who don't drive. It's like they need to develop some inside places. Is part of the, you know, and the paratransit vehicles could say transport the paratransit riders to I'll call it the accessible center, but it needs to be like inside. Like yesterday, I was thinking about it. It was raining. There's no way that I could go in my wheelchair, if I could even get there, and wait in a line all day or something. That they were showing people that were getting vaccines waiting in line all day to do it. And the model just doesn't work. And I mean, the group that I'm in is the group, you know, that dies from it. If we get COVID, there's a lot of people that it's just a really serious issue, I think, and it doesn't feel very much like anyone's trying to solve the problem for that group of people. Anyway, thank you. Now, who was next?
Clark, followed by Perry, followed by Bruns.
Clark.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I feel your frustration. I think that one, there's just multiple access points to get a vaccine. It's not just one. There aren't just mobile options to get the vaccine. You can get it through your care provider once they have it. Once they have it. I mean, that's the thing, you know, we can't provide a vaccine when people don't have it, right? But we absolutely, and I was just saying in San Pablo, we're absolutely talking about bringing on and dedicating one of our paratransit drivers to exactly that, Janet, which is taking people through a mobile vaccine so that we do have people and they drive through and do the mobile vaccine. And also you were talking about like if you get dropped off and then you don't have 3 hours to wait, but like our turnaround on a lot of our transit is 45 minutes that we could do. So we could drop people off, add a care provider.
If
they get their
the,
vaccine and they're picked up within 45 minutes. I mean, we can't make the vaccine appear.
If you could,
right?
in this line, if a person were in one of the, your vehicles, let's say,
Yeah.
if they could go to the head of the line instead of the back of the line, or they had a special line or something to move the process
Well, there are
forward for
appointments.
those folks.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
well,
there
they all
are
have appointments, I
situations
believe.
where people
But-
are waiting for a long time, but there are lots of situations too where people are getting vaccines within appointments.
I've been trying to get an appointment.
Yeah.
I can't even get into the group where you get to talk to somebody about
Yeah.
getting
And
an appointment.
it's our county and they're not
Yeah, and
opening
I'm
up as much
talking
because
about
they
the
don't
county.
have it, right? They don't have it.
I don't know. They
So-
won't say. They're not saying in the thing that in the chat that I'm having with the county about it, which is, a computerized thing. They're not even saying if they have it, but so I don't even know what's going on. But I do see that people who use paratransit can't, the systems they're setting up don't work for people who use paratransit.
I guess what I'm saying is that we are adapting. So once that vaccine is available and people are able to get appointments, that we will be able to provide that for them. I guess that's just kind of what I was saying, is that we are becoming adaptable to that. I mean, we can't control when the vaccine is going to come out in Contra Costa County and when they're going to have it for everyone, but I do think that we can be flexible. And I know at the city of San Pablo, we're planning on being flexible and changing the way that we drive and do our routes so that we can get people through drive-through vaccines and get them where we drop them off at a care provider, if that's where they're getting it, and pick them up within 45 minutes. So they're not waiting there 4 hours after getting a vaccine. So once it becomes available, we are preparing to be flexible in that way to get people who need paratransit to get the vaccine. So that's just really what I wanted to say.
Thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next?
Me.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. I'm not directly involved with the vaccine coordination, but my daughter works at an assisted living here in town, and they finally just got the vaccination. They've been getting weekly COVID tests where a company comes out to the assisted living, sets up the tent outside. There's about 3 employees. They check them in, they give them their test, they leave, they get their results in a few days. And they just got the vaccine right at the time that I probably shouldn't be telling you all this, but I'm going to anyway. I just won't tell you where she works, but all the residents now are getting COVID at this assisted living right at the moment that the vaccine comes in. So I know it's taken time for us to get it. I wish we would get it faster, and I'm just hoping that the powers that be will coordinate maybe with like the senior centers and set up something for people who aren't able to stand in line, and maybe block out time for, I don't know, 2 hours or 3 hours of giving vaccines to just specific wheelchair users. I don't know if we can do that, if that's discrimination, but I do see the problem that you're talking about, Janet. And with the drive-through clinic, that kind of concerns me too, because I know after you get the vaccine, you can't just leave. They make you,
Right.
it's like when you give blood. You don't give blood and they pull the needle out, that you don't get to walk out the door. You have to sit there so they can make sure you're not going to have any reaction. So I'm just hoping that something can be coordinated when we do get more of the vaccine, so that we can use the facilities that are closed right now, like senior centers and things like that, so that we can set up central locations for people to go so they're not standing in line. Just my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, this is Rashida. I just wanted to piggyback on what Deanna was saying. This is the law. We're not discriminating. We have to have, if we're giving out vaccines to folks who can walk up, we need to make the accessible parallel to make it happen. And it's a shame that it becomes an afterthought, but that's why people like you and I are here to advocate to make sure that, hey, I see you doing that. Where's the line for my, where's my accessible line? This person cannot do this and this person cannot do that. But as usual, it's because it's an afterthought. So people like us, we just kind of stand in the background saying, hey, you forgot about us, type of situation. So it's the law that we do. It's the law that it gets done. Unfortunately, they don't look at the law immediately. Instead, you have to hear from the loudmouth advocates like ourselves. But you forgot it. You were supposed to do it together. The plan should have been rolled out together. The accessible portion of this plan should have been rolled out with the original plan, with the first plan. It should have been rolled out as a dual plan, and that's not what happened.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add something to that? Okay.
This is
go ahead.
This
Go
is
ahead.
Mary. Am I on? Okay.
You are.
For a brief period of time, Lafayette Orinda Moraga group had a good system going because a private doctor had gotten X number of doses, and organizations within the community put out emails to their mailing list saying people over 75 could sign up for this drive-through clinic that was going to be held at a school ground. And I say this was temporarily a good plan because people got their first shot, and now the county has directed them to have people go through the usual system for their second vaccine. So I don't know how that second part is going to work, but what worked extremely well was setting up aisles on a parking lot at a school. And so you got in this line, you drove into the school, you went around these lanes, you stopped here to be made sure that you were signed up. You stopped at the next station to show the paperwork. And then you eventually got to where you got your shot, all the while you were in the car. Or it could have just as easily been a paratransit vehicle. That process took about an hour and 10 minutes to get through from start to finish, including the 15-minute wait. So I think that was a fairly ideal rollout because a friend of mine who got her immunization through whatever place, she was in line for 2 hours. Standing, no way to sit. And I know for a fact that I cannot stand for 2 hours, moving along. So I don't know why the county rolled this back. Somehow it had rolled forward at one point and now it's rolling back. But that was a very ideal system. And even if it was raining, if you were in a vehicle, you would be comfortably in the vehicle going through that line. So having seen this operate, I just think there must be a way to do more of that so that people who are in wheelchairs can be reasonably comfortable. But also I agree with senior centers. If you can get a senior center to agree to open up one of their larger rooms, like where they hold dances or whatever, that's the way we used to give flu shots. Flu shots was you just traveled around and then everybody's inside and nobody's getting wet, and you can get a ride from Link or whoever to get to the senior center to get your shot. I think we're in that evolutionary stage where the kinks have not yet been worked out, and now it's being complicated by a lack of vaccine. So as Biden, gets that gets the delivery going to all the parts of the counties, all the parts of the states, I think you will see improvement. But right now, I'm advocating for some way that seniors can sit, whether it's in a car traveling through a parking lot, lane by lane by lane, or you create that within a senior center. I think that's very important. I'm also wondering if, since some of the board and cares are being able to being able to give shots to their residents, I'm wondering if those are locations that seniors such as yourself, Janet, that if those couldn't be a certain number of people tag on to them. Just a thought.
The thing that I have heard, I was actually in one of those places for a few months this last year because I was really sick for quite a while. And that's a place where COVID spreads. So I would say that they're a very unsafe place to do that for that reason.
Well, the reason I brought it up is it's smaller groups of people assimilated to get immunizations.
I think the idea of having it in a larger room, I remember when they first gave polio vaccines, I was a kid, and they did it in the gymnasiums of schools.
Right.
And it was a time when kids got polio. So that's what I guess I would hope for. That, and then vehicles who move people in and out of the center if they needed accessible vehicles, for example.
Well, vehicles who could stay in line with people who are in wheelchairs. That way it covers the business around rain and it keeps you separated from other folks.
I mean, a person in a wheelchair can be in a gymnasium, right?
Yes, but there are still the issues of being indoors.
I don't know. But anyway, what I would hope that would happen is that the professionals that are in this conversation would work together and try to figure out ways in our county to make it possible for people who use paratransit, who need accessible vehicles, meaning wheelchair accessible, have a way to get to the sites and have a way to use the sites. And the only sites I've heard of have not been that way. But I thank you for any work you're doing on that subject. Is there anyone else who wants to talk? I know we've been kind of going on, but I think this is personally, I think this is a really important topic, and I thank Peter and other staff for putting this on our agenda. Is there anybody else? Okay.
I do not see any of the hands.
Okay, we'll move on then. The next item is the reports, and I have one from the SRAC, but it was the last meeting, but it feels like the information is just kind of outdated at this point in time. So I'm not going to give that report unless somebody's desperate for it or something. It's just, I know that we talked a lot about what a great job the paratransit service providers are doing in providing service in a very difficult time. And I haven't heard of any of the operators in this area that everyone I've heard talked about seems to be really thinking outside the box to try and make things work together. And thank you for doing that. So that's my report. Then the Senior Mobility Action Council, is there a report from that?
Yes, there is. First of all, I would like to give kudos to Rashida for working on getting one of our passengers to San Francisco for chemo. And I threw that in her lap because I didn't know how else to accomplish it. Anyhow, I'm grateful to you, Rashida. So today we were still trying to get our transportation infographic to the point that we can distribute it. And so we have a new plan for getting it worked on. What we decided to do going forward is to update each other on how we're dealing with COVID and transportation and getting people to their shots. And John Cunningham, I believe next month in February, will be sharing information that he learns at the MTC meeting about how we can have transportation across county lines. So that's the report. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, not hearing any. Is there any correspondence or communications from anyone? I think we're
We
up
did
to.
not receive any.
Okay, then I think we're at future agenda items. It would seem like this COVID item number 7D that we just talked about would be a great one to include for next time. And I'm not sure the other ones in section 7 regular agenda items. I'm not sure where things will be on those other items, but I think they're really interesting topics. I think we all do. So to the extent that it's relevant to put those on our next agenda, those maybe they could come back.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we've had a number of really good topics this time. Thank you. And is there anything else that we want to put on?
Have they, this is Member Dalgelli.
Uh-huh. Hi.
The item of the city of Antioch being removed from the list because they're not active anymore, is that going to still be dealt with, or are we working on something else at this point with that?
That'll be dealt with, Michael. I think
okay.
part of the reason that we actually talked about that at a staff level, and Janet brought up today when we talked about the accessible transportation strategic plan and this task force and how the PCC would get involved. PCC's involvement in that might require some bylaws adjustments, and the Antioch thing will take place at the bylaws revisions or adjustments as well. So we just thought we'd hold off on that until we kind of saw how this task force thing came together over this summer, and then move forward at that time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? I think we have plenty. Just keeping up with COVID and the work that's being done on the accessible transportation strategy. We've actually got lots of things going on. The other thing I was wondering about is it the reports that each operator provides. Are we going to be coming up soon on when we need to get a committee together to review those? When would that be? Do you know, Peter?
Yeah, we waived that this last year just because of the COVID. We were heavy into the COVID, and we wanted to make sure all the agencies had their time to spend working on emergency issues rather than the claim. But
what are you doing this year?
Yeah, I hadn't really talked about it. I guess I would, look at you all operators and see where you're at. Like Rashida said, we had talked about streamlining that process and the reporting process as well.
Could we maybe get a report on that topic next time?
Yeah, we can try and do that.
Okay, and which would either say we can go ahead and do it, or we should do something different.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever you think is appropriate. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We'll take a look at that.
Okay. I think we're to adjournment here. And our next meeting is on March the 15th at 2:00. And thank you everyone for participating in this meeting, and thank you staff, Peter and Fifi and Terry Ann. Are you still here? No, guess not. Okay.
Yeah, she's still here.
She is still here. Hi.
I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you all for all you're doing in this time when everything is just a lot more difficult than it usually is.
Yeah.
I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I appreciate the committee members who have managed to participate in this meeting, and thank you to everybody. So, and good luck. Okay, so
Have a good
the
week.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.